Hey y'all, I'm Angela Barrett, and this is Talking South Carolina. Now y'all take a load off and listen, because no matter if you just moved here, thinking about moving here, been here your whole life, or you just plain nosy, bless your heart, I'll have something for you. Like, who's living in High Cotton? Who's madder than a wet hen? Places to go if you got a hankering for fried chicken, and where you can go to get drunk as Cooter Brown. We'll talk pig pickings, cow tipping, tillions, hay rides, who's buttering whose biscuits, what's a case quarter, and lots of other stuff. So stay a while. Y'all, it's gotta be a hoot.
This episode of the Talking South Carolina podcast has been brought to you in part by HomeMattersSC.com, professional real estate services and marketing in the Midlands of South Carolina for people who want more. And by SimplyArley.com, video editing, podcast production and consulting, graphic design, you name it. And now, she's a realtor by day and a podcaster by night. Here's your host of the Talking South Carolina podcast, Angela Barrett.
Hey guys, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Talking South Carolina. Now today, guys, I have a gentleman coming in who is going to have to teach me a few things. He is the CEO and Chief Project Consultant for 365 Digital Technologies. Now, his world of digital technology is very different from mine. So, guys, help me welcome Guillermo Avila. I paused because I'm not sure I said that right, and so I apologize. Hang on, guys. Let me bring you in. Hey, Guillermo. Did I say it right, or did I still screw it up?
No, you know what? You're on the right track. Guillermo Avila.
Guillermo. Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So you are here to school me, to teach me, because you are in a field that I don't know a whole lot about, and that is the world of digital outside of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I am lost. So help me out. Tell me what 365 Digital Technologies does.
So what we primarily do is we do at its core project consulting. So a lot of companies will hire us to run like their enterprise level projects. Unfortunately, a lot of our business is also in what we call project rescues. And that's generally when a client has gone over budget, maybe by $1 million, $2 million. There may be a year to 2 years past when that project is supposed to be delivered. And they'll call someone like me and one of my teammates to come in and try to get that back on track so they can stop bleeding and hemorrhaging. So a lot of our focus is on managing and delivering on projects.
So first, let's back up and talk about what, for those of us who are not as knowledgeable in this area, a large enterprise project is. Give me an example of what that might be.
Sure. One rescue that we did was for a website for a biotech company, for instance. So unfortunately, they had a bad implementer. They were about $1 million over budget and still had no website. And so when I got the phone call, we look at something like that and we try to break it down in pieces, as to why it wasn't delivered and what we can do to get it delivered. So in this case, it was an e-commerce site for a biotech. And they had nothing to show for the money that they put into it. And so our job is to go in and figure out how we can pick up the pieces and try to get them a product delivered. And sometimes that requires us getting a new vendor. Sometimes we can use the same vendor, but my job is to come in and be a bit agnostic as far as who the vendor is. We're just concerned about getting that project up and running for the client.
When you say vendor, you're talking about like your website host, that kind of thing, or
Well, yeah, in this case, it was the vendor that was actually developing the website for my client. After more than a year, they still hadn't delivered a product, and they were so far over budget that we had to regroup on that. And so my job is to go in and figure out, like, do we have the right people in place to deliver what our client is looking for?
And so, again, help me, because a website, unless it is, a website for, I don't know, I'm going to say hospital, where you've got thousands and thousands of providers and different divisions and things of that nature, but they aren't that difficult unless you're taking that kind of scale, right? I mean,
Yeah. Then, when we look at something like this, it's not like a website like you would think of for just throwing something up on, just for presence, where you can, maybe have someone do it for $1,000 or maybe cheaper than that. The thing that was the complexity around this is you're dealing with a client that was integrating all of their warehousing, all of their inventory, they're forecasting off of it. They're doing predictive analysis off of it. So it's very, very complex when you look at what's happening behind the scenes. Just for someone to be able to find or purchase like a vial of something, very, very complex just to be able to show what's in inventory.
yeah, yeah. So in my real estate world, it would have been my CRM, which somebody else obviously develops, and I just get to plug in, names and numbers. Yeah, that makes more sense now. Certainly. So, all right. So tell us what else you guys do there at 365 Digital Technologies.
So that's a big piece of what we do is the project management side, but we also do CIO advisory. So CIO is typically the chief information officer for the company, and so typically we come in to serve as an advisor either to the CIO, or in some cases we come in as the interim CIO until a new one is hired, or in some cases we're just asked to stay on. Can you give us 10 hours a week? We can't afford someone full time, but we'd like to have maybe someone on a retention level. So sometimes we do things like that. The real big thing that we're getting into right now, we're actually getting ready to pull the trigger on it probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, is we're going to spin up our AI and machine learning practice. And so we're getting ready to hire some developers to help us write applications for biotech, manufacturing, supply chain sectors, and start integrating in with some of their platforms. So we're pretty excited about that. That's something we've been working pretty hard at, and we think the time is right to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. So we're going to add the AI and machine learning piece to our project management and CIO advisory side.
So tell me how AI what will AI be doing here?
So it depends on the sector. One of the first things that we want to do is do some predictive forecasting. So one of the things that we want to get into is let's see if we can use machine learning and AI to help us forecast maybe customer sales. In your world, it may have been we're going to try to see if we can help you figure out potential customers for real estate. Who are those people out there that are more likely to buy than not? And try to use AI to kind of break down for us who that market segment is, so you can more zero down on that. And that's basically what we're trying to do with some of our clients, is to try to help them develop some add-ons to help them with forecasting for sales, maybe for raw materials, anything like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And AI is everywhere, like it or not. Here it is. Embrace it and go, right?
Exactly.
um, in my world of things, AI is used not so much yet, except in a couple different areas. But it's hard to replace AI right this second anyway with true photos or true videos of a home or an area. Everybody really wants to see what that is. And but some of the, like you said, statistics and stuff like that, sure. But it's all, again, way over my head.
I think that some of the worry that people would have is, AI is going to replace my job. And if you look at like real estate, I'd say it's going to enhance the experience, but you can't remove the human element from that. There's still something about you sitting in front of someone who's a first-time home buyer, and you're really encouraging them because they're scared. AI is not going to be able to talk them off the ledge of being scared, but somebody like yourself can sit there. That human interaction is something you can't remove. So all we're looking at is where AI serves as a conduit and as a help, but not a replacement. And so that's kind of the approach that we take with it.
Right. Now, you guys are in Mauldin, South Carolina, right?
We are.
But that is obviously not a location where you generate most of your business, because I would imagine you have them everywhere with large companies.
Correct. We actually have no customers in Greenville. So we've got our clients are anywhere from Seattle, DC area. We just finished up a project in New York. We've got them all over the country, and my consultants are all over the country as well. So all of my folks work remotely, mainly because a central office doesn't make a lot of sense, because our guys are having to go wherever the work is, and so they're on site really all over the country, but we're based out of Mauldin for sure.
Yeah. Love Mauldin, actually. So let's talk about some of these companies, and how does it happen that they fail? I mean, where's this breakdown, and how does this happen when, like you said, they've paid out millions of dollars and still have nothing to show? Where do you see most of that breakdown at?
So typically what we see, and this is more often than not, is you have someone at the top level who could hire someone like me to say, hey, can you help us manage this project? We have this $3-4 million project. We could really use you and your team's help to help us manage and get this thing to success. What'll typically happen is a CFO or someone at that level may look at the cost of bringing someone like me in and say, you know what? I think we'll take a shot at managing this in-house. And for the most part, that's where we've seen it go pretty badly, is that in an effort to save money, it actually costs them more money. And so I'll end up getting a phone call. We had one client up in the Northeast where they were 2 years past their budget, about $3 million past their budgetary restraints, and was very, very, a lot of friction when I walked in. Everyone's angry. Oh yeah, everyone's angry. Everyone's upset. And when, we start asking questions again, it comes back to, we thought we could manage this in-house by ourselves. And so now they have to bring in a company like ours to go ahead and level set and get them over the finish line, which we've always been able to do. But again, it's coming at a point where they're having to spend more money in order to get them to the finish line, and it doesn't make up for the monies that they've already spent, which are usually, $1 to $2 million, over their budget.
Right. And so, I'm going to put it in some very simple forms, and I'm going to let you tell me what you think. But one of the ways to avoid this, and this is what I love to tell the lenders that I work with, I'm going to stay in my lane, you stay in yours, and the attorneys stay in theirs, because that's the problem when people start thinking they can handle these large projects, when they really don't know the deep details like you would know in what needs to be placed, when, where, and how. Is that what you're thinking is the miscommunication? I mean, sure, they manage a billion-dollar company, but this particular project is very particular. You tell me what you think they can do to avoid that. I'm just saying, stay in your lane.
Well, it's funny because in a way it sort of is. When we come in for some rescues, whether it's for manufacturing or biotech, pharmaceutical, whatever that might be, what we find is it's exactly that. You're having a group of very, very competent people that want to believe that they're able to do something that they're not skilled in. And project management is one of those skill sets that if you're not careful, you could really lose your shirt over it, and in these cases, our clients thought they could manage it in-house, and they just didn't have the in-house expertise to do that. And so generally when I see the white flag being waved and it's help is needed, usually by that point things are pretty bad. And usually there's no secret sauce in a sense for us. It's just going back to some of the basics. And so once we start adding in some of those basic things, we start to see the project start to get traction again, and we get them over the finish line.
Yeah. And this is what I have found in different parts of the world, the work sector, is that you've got, like you said, these geniuses that run this business, but when it comes to breaking it down, and seeing the little details as it goes along, because they see the big picture. They're here,
That's right.
and then, but to be able to break that down and make those steps happen when they need to happen and how they need to happen is a whole different ballgame. At least from the experience that I have seen. But I think that's kind of what you were saying, is it's running a $1 billion company as a whole is one thing. To break this project down, is something else. And you do need experts for that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's part for us is to, when we partner with the client, I had one client in particular, we're still engaged with them for quite a few years now. And one of the things I've asked them is, what is the value that we add when we're with you guys for these projects? And he always says, you guys are my watchdog. He trusts us. So when they bring in a vendor to implement something that could be a $3 to $4 million project, he's learned he doesn't have the in-house expertise to do it. They bring in my folks to do it. And our job is to protect the project. And so we will let him know if we think that we're seeing something that's going to take the project like off the rails. And he appreciates that. And that's why he just calls us our watchdog. We're the ones who help protect his company's interests.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Now let's talk just a minute, because we're talking about some of these companies and big companies, but what about your smaller companies, who struggle, some of the entrepreneurs or the small businesses that are already there? I guess you guys probably deal with them maybe on a different scale, but let's talk about them for a little bit.
Yeah, we do. We do partner with like more mid-size market, and then on the smaller scale, we do that would be more advisory. So if someone is looking for an interim CIO, or even what we call like a fractional PMO, so that would be a kind of a rent project management office. So we're just kind of a rental of our talent, and they use us as they need it. And so for those smaller to mid-sized companies, we go in normally in advisory roles and just let them know what they need to do to be successful in projects. And in some cases, they may bring on one of our team members on a part-time basis to help them do that and just get them over the hump. But we do a lot of advisory for the small mid-level market just to make sure that they're equipped and they're able to get over the hump.
Yeah, because when you do have a small business or even a mid-sized business, you don't always have all the pieces, and even big companies don't have all the pieces, I guess, or else there wouldn't be you guys. But there's a lot of, especially in the world that you're in, the technology world, there's a lot of companies, small and medium, that don't have that kind of piece.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the things that you'll find, and it's one of the reasons that I left some of the bigger consulting firms to start my own, is that the price point for those firms are not meant for small to mid-sized companies. And so if a smaller mid-sized company is looking for help from, one of the big five, they just can't afford it. Those rates are coming in sometimes at $250, $285 an hour. And, you've got a small mid-sized company just doing everything they can to survive. And so where we come in is we don't have anywhere near those rates. And our job is to just protect that client's interest and just get them moving. I mean, we're a small company. We're only, this May will be 6 years that we've been in business. We've got 10 consultants right now. We're looking at bringing in some more. We're still a small company in our own size, but we value that small to mid-sized company mindset to want to grow. So we don't ever neglect those clients. We always deal with them, but on a different level than some of the enterprise level projects that we take on.
So for somebody who's contemplating starting a business, what would be some of the advice that you would give from your world, your perspective?
My wife and I talk about this a lot. When my wife and I started the business almost 6 years ago, you're going in as a small business owner where in the consulting side, I was the only one consulting. My wife is running everything on the back end, everything from dealing with the contracts, attorneys, trying to make sure that the company gets stabilized in some way. And and we're putting in a ton of hours just to launch a company. And one of the first things that I would tell any small business owner is no one is ever going to care about your company as much as you do. No one. You have got to put the time in. It's sometimes frustrating when you work an entire day. Maybe you didn't get a client that day, but you're the one who puts in the hours to do it. And so when you do land a client, it's your success. Like, this is all yours. And luckily, I was able to start this thing with my wife, so both of us got to be able to split duties in terms of launching a company. But when you look at the struggles of a small business owner, it really is sometimes you feel like you're all by yourself. Yeah. And it's and you feel like the world's against you in some ways. And so part of what we have learned is that, man, if we're giving any counsel to anyone, you have got to put in long hours. This is not an 8 to 5 type of gig. If you're looking to start a small business, one thing that's so funny, Angela, and I don't know if you ever run across anyone like this, when we run up across sometimes friends or family, there's this misconception that because you're a small business owner, you can take off whatever time you want. Hey, if you want to take off 2 or 3 days, isn't that great? You own the business. Like, doesn't really work that way. If I don't work,
actually,
exactly. If I don't work, we're not making money. We're nowhere near to the point where I can just take off for 8 weeks and think that it's not going to impact our business. We are very, very sensitive to the amount of time that we put in. And so I think for the small business owner, it's really, you got to realize your success is going to be really determined by the grit and time and effort that you pour into your business, because you're the one who cares about it the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are days that you have to remember the why. Why again am I doing this?
You got to remind yourself every day, because there are days when you wake up, you're like, why do I do this to myself? And it's just, there's something that we wanted to do different as a business that was different than the consulting channels I came out of. And we have to remind ourselves that the reason that we do this is because we want it to be different. And we have to live that out in the people that we hire and the way that we live out our company principles with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the nice thing about working with small business, or if you're looking for a service, working with a small business, because they aren't a big corporation and they do care not only about, their business, but about the client, because that one client makes a huge difference in the business. And so you're going to give that more attentive service because you have to. Whereas a corporation can go, we don't need them.
Well, I'll tell you one thing we did, Angela, and this was one of the best things I ever invested in. I had a gentleman out in the business world who really large in the YouTube space, and someone I respect professionally, and I bought 15 minutes of his time. And he said, listen, ask me anything you want. What can we do to help you with your business? And I said, when I'm going up across the mega giants of the consulting companies out in the world, I'm a 10-man shop. They've got 30,000 people on their bench. How in the world do I differentiate myself from that? And he gave me such great advice that I use it when we're trying to make pitches to like potential military contracts or anything like that. He said, I actually had a presentation that week with the that we were playing with the Navy. And he said, you know what? Speak their language. When you approach them and you talk about the value that you add as a 10-member team, remind them that one of the best special forces that the Navy has is a small team of professionals that do a lot of damage. That's who you are. You guys are the Navy SEALs of what you do. And it was like brilliant. I realized, yeah, we are small, but we mobilize quickly. And we've got some people with incredible experience. We may not have that large army, but we are very specialized in what we do, and we're really good at it. And so to start speaking that language of like, we are the special forces of project consulting, and we do it really, really well. that's one of the best pieces of advice I've been given, and it helps me differentiate myself from some of those giants that are out there.
Yeah, yeah, I actually like that. I like that a lot. And it brings it back down to that um, human touch level where, that people can relate. I like it. Um, so, what's the big next step for? I know you said you had one project come up. What's the big next step for 365?
So, it's been a little interesting, I think, in terms of where we're at business wise. We had to do some regrouping. We were potentially looking at doing hopefully some big things for this year in the government sector. But I think with a lot of the changes that have happened, we're backing off of that a bit, and we're regrouping on the commercial end. So what we've strategically said is the next big thing for us is to start continuing building out the CIO advisory piece. But we are going to put quite a bit of effort now into launching the AI and machine learning practice. Our consulting side on project consulting has been going great, and we're continuing to grow there. So for us, I think the next natural thing is to start building applications that our clients need, trying to leverage AI and machine learning. So that's going to be the big thing that we're focused in on now.
Oh, well, cool. That'd be great. Now I have to ask, 365, is that because you work 365 days?
That's right. I never sleep. You know,
So,
our our clients, most of them, especially most of all of our clients, they all operate uh, almost every day of the year. And I think it was important to, when we named the company, to reference the fact that we're recognizing that our clients never sleep, and it was important for us in the name to realize that we're going to be there for them with that same level of effort. Because they're putting out products that people are relying on. My pharma companies are developing vaccines, solutions, things like that people need. My manufacturing folks are developing things that people need on an everyday basis. And if they're operating 24/7, I should be able to operate 24/7 in that mindset. So that was pretty strategic for us when we named the company.
yeah, I like it. So now, what would you say to date in the 6 years that you guys have been opened and up and running? Your most successful story. I know you can't say company names or names, but just giving me the basis of the most successful story you've had so far.
I think it's one that we rolled off here rather recently. It was a very large ERP implementation, which is it's a platform that combines all your manufacturing, distribution, logistics, HR. I mean, it's a very, very large platform that Microsoft has, and the client was 2 years past their go live. I want to say that they were close to 2.5 million past budget, and they were on their last leg. They were bleeding out, trying to say, how are we going to go live with this product? We went in about 6 months' time. We were able to get them to an initial go live. And then about 4 to 5 months later, we went with a second go live. And so we were able to get them in about a year's time back on track. But it took a lot of effort and just a lot of regrouping. But we were able to get them live, and I think it stopped the bleeding that they had, because it was running. It was going to run in the millions if they didn't call us in.
That's cool. That is a good story. And good for them and good for y'all. Uh, what is your favorite part about what you do? Running the company, the actual getting in there and doing the work, or is it, give me what your favorite part of it is?
It's funny, because I thought when we started the company, I thought my biggest satisfaction would be shaking the hand of a CEO or CFO after a project, and just the satisfaction of saying, "Hey, you guys got us where we couldn't get to. Thank you." And it ended up being something different. And where we're at now is, where in the beginning I thought the mindset would be, we can get them where they need to be at, and we could walk away and go on to our next project. And what's happened is it's evolved into that C-level suite saying to me and my team, can you guys keep working with us to make sure we never have this happen again?
Yeah. Nice.
And, it was funny. I had one CFO tell me that, it's such a huge compliment. The CEO went to him one day and said, listen, is it really necessary, to keep Guillermo and his team around? There's an expense having them around. And the CFO told him, it is cheaper having them on our team than it is not having them. And the whole point was the amount of money that they were losing running these projects into the ground was far more costly than having one or two of us on the team there. And that's just a huge compliment when they have that much trust in my team to get those projects delivered. It's the biggest compliment. It really is.
Absolutely.
It's something that we hold dear, that we've got clients that believe in us enough that they want us to stick around and keep running other projects for them.
Yeah, that's nice. That is, I don't disagree. That's a great thing when somebody, in my world gives you a recommendation or calls you back to do the same thing again. And you're right. That is probably one of the best parts.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for talking with me today and helping me learn a little bit this morning. I appreciate it. And we'll have to get together maybe in about a year and see what all you guys and how much further you've come from today.
That would be awesome. I would totally welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking South Carolina podcast. Why not check out our website at talkingsouthcarolina.com and follow us on social media. You can subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and on your favorite podcast apps. For information about being a sponsor on the show and on the website, contact us at area code 803-386-9885 or email us at angela@talkingsouthcarolina.com.
I'm gonna be the best version of me. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, roar like a